It's bad. Anime.
Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the podcast where we decide,
Is this anime bad?
And today
we're watching one that's been recommended to us probably since the beginning.
yes, you know, I heard about it since the beginning, but we posted an Instagram of sorts,
yeah.
And somebody commented, you guys gotta do Domestic Girlfriend. And I was like, I like receiving recommendations from people that listen to the podcast.
And here we are now.
I love that. So we decided to watch this whole 12 episodes of Domestic Girlfriend, a series that I didn't really know what it was about, but I had heard of it in the context of the bad anime community.
I heard about it a lot. One of the three biggest anime YouTubers, he's one of the guys who does Trash Taste.
Oh, nice. Gigguk?
Yeah, Gigguk.
Yeah,
he
okay.
did. He's a very big fan of this show, and particularly the manga.
Really?
Yeah, he's a huge fan of it. So he's kind of like the well-known champion of this one.
Interesting.
And so, and when it comes to quote-unquote trashy animes, he's been like spearheading this particular series.
That adds a little more context, actually, to the show.
Yeah, so that's why it's more well-known of the recent crop of,
I see.
risque romance anime.
Right.
And, well, actually, no, I think the term that's used most frequently is spicy.
Spicy.
They love referring to these type of shows as spicy.
It is spicy.
Because, well, that's based on it's a spicy premise.
Yes.
The setting is very...
It is.
Let's get into it right now because I really want to talk about this.
Let's just tackle it. Just go for it. Just tell us the premise.
So the
Tickle me.
The
Tickle me
premise
in my
is
balls.
it starts yes sir. Easy sailor.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Having a good time.
Oh, I don't want to stop at all. I'm a rocket ship on my way to Mars.
Don't stop.
All right.
Me now.
Having a good time. Okay. We're leaving all that in.
Let's do it, bitch.
This is anyway. We meet a young sailor by the name of Natsuo Fuji.
Yes.
He's a good dude. He's a high school student, and the show starts off with him just losing his virginity.
Yes. Almost immediately.
And we get the context as to this. It's one of the most interesting ways I've seen a person lose their virginity in anime.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to a mixer with a bunch of like people from like his high school and another high school. They're all hanging out. And he starts chatting with this one girl, the blue-haired, red-eyed girl, Rui.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just talking a little bit, and she's kind of monotone, you know. Hey, well, I got a monotone, blue-haired character with red eyes.
Right.
Where have I ever seen that before?
I've never seen that before.
Never.
So what did Natsuo and Rei do? Thank you. I mean, Rui do. What did they do next? What happened next?
So they go back to her place, and she has a house to herself, and she's like, hey, let's do it. And he's like, excuse me? I just met you. And she's like, yeah, but I want to experience it, and it looks like you haven't done this a lot before, so and I don't want to get taken advantage of, so let's just bone so I could say I boned. And he's like, huh?
I mean, okay. Because the thing was, it was heavily hinted at earlier in the episode that he's in love with somebody.
Yes.
But somebody that can't return his feelings.
Exactly. So
legally, because she's a teacher.
We'll get to that in a second, but
he's kind of sad about it.
So he's sad about it. So
Right.
So the whole unrequited love thing. He's trying to get over the crush he has on his teacher.
Yes.
And so
he
goes
drowns his sorrows
in another woman.
in another woman.
So and they presumably bump the uglies, and then they're walking home very awkwardly, and Rui's like, yeah, we're probably never gonna see each other or speak to each other again, so bye. And he's like, damn.
And at this point, when I was watching, I was like, that leads me to believe that we're going to see them. And
we're gonna see her again.
They're going to see each other again.
And now we learn a little bit more about our boy Natsuo. He does very much have a crush on his teacher. His teacher Hina.
Yes, Hina.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
Hina.
it's implied she's not very much older than him. It's implied
Right.
that she's a recent grad.
She's pretty young.
Yeah, so she's probably
comparatively.
in her late 20s.
Yeah,
maybe
something like that.
That's the implication we're getting. So anyway, so he's definitely got eyes for the teacher. All his friends are like, yeah, he wants to bone Hina. Nice. It's a very boys will be boys type of environment.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but he's at home, right, contemplating about all this going on, and still coming to grips with, I just lost my virginity randomly.
Right.
To the point where his dad opens the door. He's like, hey, can we talk about something? I've been seeing this woman. yeah, I'm getting remarried. And he's like, great. You know, we learned
Right.
his mother's been dead for a while, 10 years, I believe.
Sure. And he's
And,
like,
and he's
"Yeah,
happy at first.
yeah."
He's like, yeah, my dad's getting remarried. This is awesome. It's like, great. Your new stepmother and your 2 stepsisters are going to be here in 10 minutes. It's like, Dad, that's not how you do this.
That's not how you do plot, Dad. We need to take things more episode at a time. You can't spring this all on me in
And also,
episode
just real
1.
world, that's not how you introduce
That is not how you do it.
kids to their new step parent. That's
Which
not
is
how
why
it goes.
his dad is probably my favorite character in the show.
He
He's like-
honestly does get a lot of points as the
he's
show
like,
goes on.
by the way, Natsuo, I'm getting remarried, and also they're coming over right now.
Yeah, he's basically a sitcom dad.
It's a lot to take in, Dad, Father.
But speaking of a lot to take in, Natsuo first meets his new stepmom. Like, oh, hey. And then he sees his 2 new stepsisters. And it's his teacher and the girl he slept with.
Both of them,
Because they're sisters.
and they don't look anything alike.
No.
One has blue hair and red eyes, and the other one just looks like a girl. There's no.
I believe she had green eyes and brown hair, but
There's no correlation between the
No.
2 of them, so you would never think that something like this would happen unless you watch anime regularly.
and then you learn this kind of thing happens
This kind
routinely.
of thing happens all the time. So when we met them, I was like, okay, I thought one of them was going to be his stepsister, not both.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting because they do a lot of flashbacks to him and Rui boning.
Yeah.
And Rui is very, very cryptic about literally everything in the
Yes.
show, and she's not good at saying actual words ever. She
Gee, a cryptic and stoic standoffish blue-haired girl with red eyes.
I know what you're talking about. But after they
Let's
have
not avalate this conversation too much.
let's not evangelion elongate this. This is more than we need to.
But I think Rui's probably an angel.
Yeah. And
Gendo.
after they have sex for the first time,
Yeah.
Rui says something, and I quote, "I don't know what you did right or wrong. I just know I'm the same." I don't know what this means. She speaks in riddles, and I don't
I
understand
was
her.
about to say, is that a compliment? Is that a dig?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Was it just the most meh lovemaking experience
Yep.
of all time?
Yep.
Just like a lot of, huh?
Yep. It's
Cool.
weird.
I don't
It's
get it.
weird. But either way, right, that's the big twist.
That's the twist, yep.
Kick off for the first episode with that big twist.
Yep.
And of course, like, he loves his teacher,
Yep.
Hina, and he just had sex with Rui.
Yeah, so it's a little uncomfortable in the new house.
Yeah.
And because they immediately all move in together.
Yep. And they all move in together. And of course, like a day after the dad is like, I'm getting remarried, they're also moving into our house.
Yeah.
So, oh no, they move into a new house together.
All the movie, I forgot about
They
that.
somehow bought a house in less than 24 hours. And
Unless they already bought everything, and then the his absolute Chad of a father is like, yeah, we're doing all this now. I hope you're okay with it.
It was great.
kinda brutal,
It
but
was
also-
good. Good way to just break us into the thing.
It's
And
funny because that whole setup is pretty comedic in nature.
Yeah.
But the show's not necessarily funny.
It's not funny.
It's not trying to be funny.
because Natsuo is very serious about everything.
The whole show is actually pretty serious about everything.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess you could say, we'll get to it whether or not it was a disappointment or not, but based on that premise, I was expecting a raunchy, horny good time.
Right.
That's not what the show is.
Yeah, it's more emotional than that.
It's more of a soap opera or a melodramatic.
Very soap opera. You're correct. I just feel like I was expecting so much trash, and I was expecting just so much just boobies flying everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, sure, you had that sometimes, but it was like, other than
Even that was rare.
It was very rare. It was like maybe like every other episode you'd get some sort of like something like that. It was more like, who does he really like? And who really likes him?
It was barely, the whole thing was, there was no, it wasn't trying to be tantalizing. It was,
No.
it was just trying to, it was really focusing on the romance aspect more.
Which
leads
surprised
me
me.
to lead me to say something, because I know this for a fact.
Yes.
This, I don't want to, I hate to generalize so much, but this is true. This original manga was written by a woman. And that kind of shows because in this field where it's especially the typical horny male dominated
Yes.
genre of ecchi manga or like romance manga, it's a very different approach.
Yeah.
And in reading I did read one interview. No, I saw the interview. Gigguk actually interviewed the creator of this manga,
Wow.
and she talked about how a lot of her influences were soap opera and a lot of Western romances, and then stuff that was more geared towards women. And those influences definitely creep in here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just because I was expecting something way hornier.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense narratively too.
Yeah.
Like as you travel through like the show for the 12 episodes, like that, you never really in those shows, and these kinds of shows end up like feeling bad for people, or feeling
I felt bad for a lot of characters.
I felt bad for like everybody at a certain point.
Well, because and then at the end of episode 3, we get the first interesting relative plot development of the show.
Yes,
and a lot of maybe a few too many plot coincidences here. But here's what's going on. Our boy Natsuo has also a bunch of friends who work at this cafe.
Right.
An eclectic group of characters. He has the one bigger friend with glasses who Natsuo goes to talk to about all his problems, and the friend goes, I don't know what to say about this.
And that's all that
while
happens.
poking his glasses.
And then like the owner of the cafe,
the wildly flamboyant one,
is very flamboyant, and we even get like backstory to him. And I'm like, why are they showing us his backstory? Like at episode 10 or something.
Oh yeah, we learned he was in
the Yakuza.
He was a Yakuza boss, and like he fell in love with one of the other drug dealers.
And I was like, why are they doing this?
Yeah, we got a little backstory for him too.
What did I need this for?
Yeah, so we have him, and then there's just a random girl who working the cafe who doesn't really get fleshed out.
No,
but it's the three of them working this cafe that Natsuo winds up at a lot.
Yeah.
So at one point, him and his friend, he was talking to his friend about his predicament. He's like, "Well, that's fucked up. Let me tell you some more fucked up stories. This one girl is here constantly with her boyfriend arguing about when the boyfriend's going to leave his wife." And and then. As Natsuo and his friend are leaving, the guy goes, "Oh, and that's the girl over there. It's Hina, his teacher and new stepsister."
Oh, God.
We learned she's seeing a married man, and one of the first major plot points is Natsuo and Rui teaming up to try to help Hina break off this relationship she's currently in.
This affair she's a part. She's like the other woman in this affair.
Exactly.
And they're which is funny because it brings Natsuo and Rui back together because they're like, we got to stop this. We got to like work together.
We got to stop this. We got to work together. Rui's like, I hate this. She's unhappy. Let's solve this.
It's weird.
And Natsuo's like, I love her.
But in like the same exact time period, and like he does love her.
Yeah.
And that's very clear because at one point he like goes to her room or something.
Yeah.
And starts talking to her about her affair.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to stop doing this. And then they kiss.
Yes.
Hina and Natsuo randomly. And then she's like, but you're a child, so you could never love me the way I need to be loved. And I was like,
she starts she pins him down, starts unbuttoning his shirt.
Yeah.
And he's like intimidated. So she gets off him and does everything you just described, where she's like, get out.
toxic as fuck.
Yeah, not good. Not inherently good.
Just a weird time for everybody's emotions.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, is Hina into Natsuo? Yeah. Even though she's having this affair with a married man who turns out to be a professor of hers.
Yeah, it was a teacher of hers back in the day.
There are layers to this.
Layers to this.
It's like an incest onion. You just keep digging.
Okay, incest onion. That's a new cryptocurrency right there.
Cryptocurrency.
That's a total rip on deep onion, but still, which is an actual crypto.
Is it?
Yeah.
Deep onion.
Deep onion.
That sounds even more sexual than.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Domestic girlfriend.
Domestic girlfriend. So yeah, we find out
that professor. It was an old professor of hers,
right.
And I forget how they re-met, but I think they reconnected after she graduated from college and started teaching.
Right.
And they realized, oh, we have feelings for each other. And so he starts seeing her, and while his relationship with his wife is kind of deteriorating. Mm-hmm. And, so they're just caught in that whole predicament. But I want to give the show credit for one thing here.
Yeah.
They never paint this particular guy in that negative of a light.
Yeah.
They really don't even say anything about his character. They never try to make you think one way or the other about what kind of a guy he is. They're not trying to lead you. They're trying to let you have your own conclusion.
They actually make a big effort, I think, to kind of put you in the shoes of Hina as well.
Yes.
And kind of take you to her psyche, because she has the exact same psyche as like Natsuo in this certain situation. Like he was a mentor to her. She was new at school and he was like nice to her and whatnot. And he seems like a nice guy.
He seems like a good guy.
He just has this one big problem that, I don't know, is infidelity. Yeah. But everything else with him seems all right. Yeah. And it's that like teacher-student relationship kind of thing.
Yeah.
She's like a guide to her.
Right.
And he's her first love.
Yeah.
Much like Hina is Natsuo's first love.
Yeah.
So it's like they get you thinking at the same time, like, is Natsuo kind of a dick? Because you could think like, Natsuo's love that he has for Hina is the same exact kind of love that Hina has for like her professor.
Yeah.
So it's like, at what point are you just being a little weird about this whole thing?
At what point are you
being like a hypocrite about
being
this?
a hypocrite? Yeah, exactly. Where the whole situation is, don't be with him because that won't make you happy. I'll make you happy.
Right.
So yeah, it's a total hypocritical.
Right. I'm 15.
Yeah.
I will make you happy. He's like 17.
He's 17.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's it's anime. It's high school.
Right. It's high school. Things happen.
Apparently, a lot happened in these anime high schools.
There is a lot of content in each episode, though. I think like there is one episode where after Natsuo dives deep into the affair more and like tries to get her to break up with him. He like runs away from home.
Yes.
And he stays at his friend Fiyomi's house. And one of the scenes that I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
And like eventually like Rui comes.
Yeah.
And she's like helps him like, get himself together and like get out of there and like to help her like break them up still.
Yeah.
And Rui comes over and she's like hanging out with like Fiyomi and Natsuo in their house. And the mom comes home.
Yeah.
And the mom's like, oh, hey, everybody. How's it going? And Fiyomi's like, hey, Mom, I got some friends over. And she's like, no problem. I'll just make dinner for a family of 5 now. Like, that's just disrespectful, honestly.
Yeah. Jesus.
But either way, there's a couple little like pockets of like extra things that happen like throughout. But as things go on, like
it's funny when we put that extra things because the show has a tendency to debut characters who I can only describe as extra because they have no bearing on the story. They just stick around.
They do, like that guy at the cafe.
The guy at the cafe, and even like the guy who Hina was seeing originally. After the whole thing with him gets resolved, he's still around in the show, doing nothing.
He is kind of around in the show.
They introduce a couple new characters. They introduce this one character. I forget her name. It's Momo. Momo, yeah. She's kind of known as the promiscuous girl at high school. She's been with a number of boys, and basically, it's the show's attempt to throw in a character for Natsuo to continue, like contemplate sleeping with before deciding. No, I think I'm gonna go after one of my stepsisters instead. Yeah. Let me figure out which one first.
Perfectly healthy.
Because they're on like the verge of doing it. And, it was just funny because it felt like the show was kind of slut-shaming this character.
It really was the whole time. Yeah. Like, everyone was talking to him. Like, even his friends were like, oh, yeah, I slept with her last week. And I was like,
but it was funny. The friends were like, nah, dude, I just slept with that last week. You don't want to do that. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to do that? It's weird. The whole tone
it was weird.
The tone of that whole character was weird.
And she did something that, like, tertiary, like, hot girl characters do in anime. Where in her episode, she's a big threat to, like, the plot. And she's, like, kind of throw off everything, like, oh, maybe Natsuo sleeps with her, and like enter some drama.
Rui's season gets a little Rui's a little sensitive, and
but then she just ends up not being a problem anymore. After that one episode, it's just kind of like she becomes friends with everybody.
But she sticks around.
Yeah, she does stick around.
It was the same problem in fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! When you introduce all these characters who didn't do anything, they just stuck around.
Just a whole bunch of floaters just hanging around.
Duke Devlin. Basically every
Don't you talk shit about Duke Devlin, all right?
I'm talk shit about Duke Devlin.
I love Duke Devlin. He throws dice and they make cool sounds when they land.
Did they?
No.
I like Duke Devlin
Dungeon
too.
Dice Monsters.
The Game Boy Advance game for that was fucking great.
It was actually really good. Yeah.
I lost my copy and I'm so mad.
Duke
Devlin.
But yes, but so he's about to sleep with this Momo chick, and then he realizes that she has cuts on her wrist.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, this is not a good thing.
It's like, yeah, no,
I should
I'm not going to do this.
Not enable you in this way." And he's like, I'm just going to be your friend and make you yakisoba sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then, like, throughout the whole show, he's just like, yeah, I'll make Momo some yakisoba, and then she'll be fine.
Yeah, he does. That's become something he's known for, is making people yakisoba, and suddenly it cures their depression.
Noodles cure all.
That's a fair point.
But yeah, so that's like, it's a weird arc.
There was another girl. There was a green-haired girl that showed up and did nothing.
And he, that's right. That's another big random point, is that he eventually accidentally joins a book club.
Yeah,
because this teacher that's like another teacher that's a professor there is like,
I almost forgot about the whole literature club arc.
Right? It was a weird arc because it was, again, like there,
several episodes,
but not really there. It was like always happening.
And like, he's writing, and then we learn he wants to be a novelist.
Yeah,
and of course he's writing novels about him wanting to sleep with his teacher.
Right.
So they're like, okay, we know who you're falling for. And like, oh, that's also your stepsister. Oh, nice.
Ooh, that's a bit messy, boy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's kind.
I want to clean that up over there.
I know you have a thing for troubled romances. Wasn't that a line in Angel Sanctuary?
Yes, it was. It was.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so he joins that literature club, and this professor's like, I don't know, trying to make them right and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like critiquing his work consistently
Yeah.
and stuff. So that's another kind of arc. And like,
I love it because apparently he left his. I forgot. This had to do with him and Hina both realizing, hey, there's something here. I remember, I forgot who read it, but he left like his manuscript out, and then someone came up to him and said, "I read your novel." I'm like, bullshit. Who's gonna sit down and read an entire like draft of a novel?
fucking nobody. Who wouldn't
I know
read
this
that
is anime, but my suspension of disbelief is shot right
I think
now.
Rui read it.
Okay,
And
that
she
I
was like,
believe.
I read your novel, and I was like, in a day,
Yeah.
and it's a draft. How did you get through all the typos?
Yeah, how'd you
honestly,
get through all the-
it's probably pretty rough.
Probably a very rough experience.
But Rui, I think this happens. She reads the novel, so she understands and is aware of like that he loves Hina, right? Yeah. And around this time, Rui gets kind of sick.
Yeah.
And this is a scene that I really wanted to bring up. I have it in my notes in bold.
Bold.
So Rui gets a little sick, and Natsuo is in the house, and Natsuo's like, I guess I gotta take care of Rui while she's sick. So, she's my stepsister. I can at least fuck her. I mean, take care of her. And so he's
Stepbrother, help!
So he starts. So she's stuck in the washing machine, right? But no. So he comes out. And she's sick, and he's like, giving her tea and like giving her medicine, and she's like, I really need a special kind of medicine, and he's like, what kind of medicine? And she's like, I need a suppository.
I forgot about that.
Okay. I'll get you a suppository. And she's like, but I need you to put it in. And he's like, so I'm gonna slip this pill in your butthole right now. Are you sure that you cannot do that? Are you sure that you are physically unable to slip this pill in your beehole right now? Because I'll do it. And then so he does it, and she makes like kind of an orgasm face, and then it's kind of over. And I just wanted to bring that up.
I forgot about that entire scene.
Yeah, she doesn't become sick anymore after that. Suppositories, everybody.
Is that I know we said noodles cure all, but I think we found another thing that works.
Noodles are for depression. Suppositories are for sickness.
I have no idea where to go from that point. Yeah, please take the reins.
To move from pills and buttholes.
Okay.
We get to our next kind of arc. And this is when Hina is completely void of her her relationship or her affair.
Yeah.
And now she's like kind of seeing the possibility of dating Natsuo more.
Yeah.
Because he's like pushing. He's coming on pretty strong.
Yeah, he's like, let me in.
And she's like, no. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, no. And he's like, yeah. And one day they go to the beach, and she's like dragging him out to the water, and he's like, oh, where are we going? And she's like dragging him out at the beach. She's like, should we keep going and drown? Because that's what would happen if we ever entered into a relationship.
That scene I did remember, and I love that. That was so abrupt and dark. I loved it. And he's kind of freaking out, like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
it got me some great School Days vibes right there.
Big School Days,
that hardcore dark edge right at the end where you didn't expect it.
Very dark, and they decide maybe we shouldn't do this because we don't want everybody to get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
And then after that event, Hina moves out. She gets her own apartment.
Yeah,
and then Natsuo, of course, starts visiting a bunch, cooking her food and like hanging out, and then they go back on their word and they start having a secret relationship.
Yeah, they start having a little affair in secret.
Yeah, and then they do that for a little while. It's not confirmed if they bone or not, but I don't think they ever do.
I think they did at one point.
Maybe they do once.
No, they did at one point. Yeah.
Okay,
I forgot.
They bone once at least.
Yeah, at least once.
But then Rui,
because they're having pillow talk.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. They do, but it's okay. It's at a different location, right?
Gotcha.
And then they get found out because Rui like comes over.
Also stops by. It's like, oh, okay.
All right, yeah. And then she's upset because she secretly likes Natsuo.
Yeah.
Which he, I guess, knows because she tries to kiss him a lot randomly.
Yeah.
And then they get found out because they go on a school trip, and there's a school field trip where you have to. Oh, it's one of those classic not tropes where you go on the field trip and you got to dance around the big fire in the middle.
Yes.
Whoever's holding hands ends up together forever, right?
Yeah.
So during that big bonfire,
I remember seeing that scene and going, oh, fucking course.
Yeah, it's School Days all over again,
and quintessential quintuplets,
and every other show.
Every show.
But then Natsuo and Hina go into Hina's hotel room, and then they boink.
Yeah.
But then somebody from the outside
Yeah.
takes a picture of the festival.
Yeah.
And then the next day, at school, Hina comes into the principal's office, and the principal's like, now what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And it's a photo that they zoomed in, like, pixelated heavily.
Yeah.
And it's just like her and Natsuo, like, just
making out,
just sucking face.
Yes.
In a window in the background of some random photo somebody took at this event. And she was like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to transfer schools. And they're like, yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, it's like, get the fuck out, please.
You get the fuck out of here. How could you do that with a child?
Of course, they didn't dig too deep, and they realized, oh.
Yeah, whoops. And then she announces at like the big school graduation finale, whatever it is, that she is leaving to go to another school. And Natsuo is like, oh, no. Was it because of me? And yeah, it was, dude. Yeah. And then she goes to another school and she sends a note to Natsuo. She leaves one in her apartment that's like, don't come looking for me. I've transferred and like it's over. Like it was never gonna work out and we're done. And so Natsuo was really sad.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's kind of it.
I was gonna say that's kind of like isn't that pretty much how I'm trying to think what happens after that in terms of wrapping up the show. Rui goes, cool, I'm gonna move in a little harder on you. And I think that's where the show ends.
Yeah. So Rui, well, at the end of the show, Hina leaves, and actually there is one scene that is just very random because Natsuo walks into his house one day, a while after Hina leaves, and he sees Hina in the house, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And he like runs up to her and like hugs her and stuff.
Hug.
And it's Rui with a wig on.
I don't remember the scene at all.
It's Rui with she just put a brown wig on.
Yeah.
I don't know what for.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, and she's like, you still love her. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. So I don't know, I don't really remember what happened in the end, but it was just sad, I feel like.
I think they tried to give like a little upswing at the end, like trying to give it a kind of a happy note to end the series on. It's like, what are you gonna do, Natsuo? And he's like, I don't know.
And also let it be known that his parents just found out about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sucks.
And they're like, you kids, You did kind of meet like, oh shit. They're kind of just like whatever about it. I'm trying to think. I forgot what I don't even think they said anything. I don't remember at all.
I don't think they did either. They were just like, oh, you kids, yeah, whatever. Just stop. Don't fuck your stepsister. You know. That was like pretty much the end.
That was pretty much the end of Domestic Girlfriend.
I do have one or two more notes.
Gotcha.
Okay. At near the end of the show, we went into the backstory of that coffee shop guy who's a former Yakuza guy.
Yeah, the show should have been about him.
I was like, the fuck is that? Yeah, I was like, it was way more interesting.
Yeah.
And then my last note of the entire show is, a bonfire at a school festival, huh? I'm starting to think all these animes are Japanese. And with that, Rob, was this anime bad?
You know, I had to think about this one a little bit.
Okay, all right.
I had to think about this one
This is good.
Little bit.
I was surprised when you said it's got some good reviews in the community because I upon finishing it, I was like, I genuinely don't know how people felt about this or how I felt about it even.
See, I had to ask myself that question because there were a couple memorable moments, but unfortunately, which, you can probably base it on the fact I'm constantly talking about how much I don't remember. Mm-hmm. I was just bored.
Yeah.
A lot of the show dragged, and the side characters didn't play any role in the plot, like I said, and nothing really was building. It was just... But none of the characters conveyed enough emotion for me to be invested. Like, even though they were clearly going through stuff, but it wasn't... They just weren't pulling me in. Maybe I just didn't really care for these characters enough. Maybe they just were a little underdeveloped for my liking. But... And maybe I was expecting more. Because when everyone was talking about how spicy this was, and how they were like, oh, listen to this premise. I'm like, did you guys watch the show?
Yeah.
Because the show was kind of a slog.
Yeah, it was a bit of a slog. It did drag at a lot of points.
Definitely dragged.
I
was falling asleep.
I didn't know what I was expecting, but I was expecting something just a little more like outlandish.
That's the thing with a premise,
and it wasn't that, and I'm fine with it. But at the same time,
in theory, but
it didn't really make me connect with the characters as much as I would have liked.
Yeah, I would have preferred more drama and less melodrama. Like, I would have loved some real heartache. It's like, I'm madly in love with you, but we can't do this. Like, we got that glimpse of that with the great scene with Hina pulling Natsuo into the ocean.
Right.
If the show went in directions like that, I would have been pulled in. Again, we're going back to my misery index. How miserable does a show need to be for me to give a shit?
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
So with all that being said, I got to give it by a couple points, I gotta go bad.
It's bad. Wow.
I gotta go bad. It's just
Ooh.
I just wasn't interested.
That's spicy right there.
That is a little spicy right there.
That is spicy.
I just the characters they did not pull me in. There was a couple good moments aside does not save a show that I just thought was boring.
Yeah.
And with a premise like this, come on, there's so much room for so much more comedic or more serious and more dramatic. But it was just way too middle of the road, way too safe a lot of the time. And if it was wildly explicit or something, at least I would have remembered it more. This show just wasn't as nearly as memorable as I thought it would be. And maybe some people really related to these characters. For me, it just didn't.
Yeah.
In the middle of the whole middle of the series felt like it just didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
You know, like
You're right.
It began and ended on a solid enough place, but all the fucking random side characters who maybe this manga was better because a lot of these things could come and go in a manga very quickly to fill out chapters, but they just focused episodes on these characters who didn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
If you can if you can cut and remove a lot of your show.
There was a lot of stuff that didn't really matter in this
Yes!
show. Like, you remember when he had that American friend that just came in for a few episodes?
I forgot about the American dude.
Like, he's just this blonde guy who's like...
occasionally spoke English.
He's like, hey, Natsuo, what's going on?
Yeah.
Something in Japanese.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't remember what the point of all these plot devices
There
was.
were no points. The show was padding itself.
Yeah.
It feels like they picked up the manga too early in its production, and they just felt like including all the bullshit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can cut from the show, and it would have been way better off for it.
I think you could even shorten it to 10 episodes per season. There was some
Maybe even
stuff.
less.
There was some stuff that was just like I don't
Because
they started a lot of plot points.
Yeah.
But never really expanded upon them.
does this need a season 2?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. The only thing that would make me want a season 2 is that banger of a theme song that opens up the show.
The music was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
And I will say I'm aware of how the manga ends because Gigguk did a video on it, which I watched after I finished this. And the ending is interesting. It's
Really?
it's kind of fucked up and all over the place and wild.
Would you I'm never going to watch. Would you care to spoil?
Spoils?
Yeah.
So what happens is
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for the end of Domestic Girlfriend, the manga. So Natsuo knocks up Rui. So Rui's pregnant.
Oh, she's pregnant.
Yeah, so he knocks her up.
Damn.
She's pregnant, and they decide to have the child. But Rui tells him, I'm not going to use this child as a way to force you to be with me. You clearly love my sister. Then Hina gets hit by a bus. And she's in a coma
No.
for a few years.
No.
And the entire time, he's like by her side. And she eventually wakes up and they get married.
What the fuck? And he has a child with her sister.
Yes.
This shit is the most soap opera-y bullshit I have ever heard. That's actually crazy.
So that's the thing. When I hear that,
That's a large L. That is a magnificently large L.
So when I hear that, I'm like, there's something interesting here, at least from the side of the manga. I think this show just, unfortunately, they picked up the series too early into production because the manga ran for 6 years.
Yeah.
And this came out right in the middle of it. If they had just waited till the end, they could have crafted a much shorter, much more interesting, much wilder story.
Yeah.
So, especially when I hear the potential of the show, maybe that adds to my negativity a little bit. I'm like, oh, this could have been more. And that's my final take on the show. It could have been more.
Wow. I just when I was entering the show again, as I said in the beginning, I thought it was going to be a lot more trashy, right?
Yeah.
And you know, with like trashier shows, I feel like you get the perspective of like, oh, like what's the point of the show? It's just like, you know, it's trashy, it's funny, it's silly, it's like all these things, right? I just didn't get the point of this show. I don't know what like they were trying to tell me throughout the show. Not that every show needs that, but if you're gonna try to pull up my emotions and my heartstrings every episode, there's got to be a reason you're doing that.
Yes.
Like, what do you want me to? What do you want me to feel? Do you want me to be like, yeah, you know, it'd be fine for like people to have sex with their step siblings?
Yeah.
Like, is that like the point of this?
Is that the point? According to Japan, that's perfectly fine. You can you can legally marry your step sibling.
Yeah, that is true. But like, I just don't know what this show wants me to think or wants me to. It's weird. There's like no message. It's like all of this thing happens and then this thing happens and then that thing happens. Just like the end where you told me where Rui gets pregnant from Natsuo.
Yeah.
And then he marries her sister.
Yeah.
And like I just don't understand like what it's supposed to do for me.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know.
And
Here's the thing. Sometimes you can, especially when it's a serialized story like this, you can start a story and not really have an idea of where you want to go with it. Because sometimes you come up with just a banger of a premise.
Yeah.
And you just kind of roll with it. I would not be surprised at all if the writer of the show just had a great idea for a premise and some good moments in the beginning, and she just kept getting extended.
Yeah.
So she made, who knows, she might have just made it up as she went along. That could very easily be what happened.
And as for like bad or good from my end, I think, you know, before this episode, I was very much struggling.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like, my initial thought about finishing the show for myself, at least before we had this conversation, was it's narrowly not bad because it at least did a few things. I thought it was funny in some areas. I think like Rui was a kind of funny character. Like I think there was one point where Hina was like, "Rui, go wake up Natsuo," and Rui goes to just his door, and she's just like, "Wake up."
Okay, so there was
some cutesy, funny things.
There was a bit of humor
on,
there, yeah.
But largely, like it just doesn't have a fucking point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could drag myself through another season of that, and I'm not excited to watch more of it if there is more. So I guess I'll have to say it's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's
like
bad.
It's just I was watching it and I was just like, it was really boring.
That's the thing.
It was very boring. And a few things happened. And there were times where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But that only happened like twice.
Yeah.
And after that shock factor, it quickly dissolved into just weird, toxic behavior from all three main characters involved.
Yeah, and
that just didn't add up.
And it just wasn't interesting.
Yeah. It just wasn't very interesting.
At least going back to school days, at least when all the toxicity and stupid shit there, at least it was entertaining.
It's a premise. It's not a show.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a premise.
It's a premise, not a...
When you read the juicy premise, I feel like if you're getting into it, you read the premise and you're like, whoa, what are they going to do?
Exactly.
But then you watch it
and you're like, fuck, I'm bored.
and it doesn't really do much.
You're just bored.
It doesn't do much. It doesn't really act on it. But yeah, wow. I don't really call things bad that often.
I know. This is only like the third time you've done it, I think.
It was only today that I realized, because like throughout my watching of it, I was like, I can at least handle this kind of, right? But I guess in the end, just rather it not exist, I guess.
I think we can give Domestic Girlfriend a hearty skip.
Yep, it's a skip for sure. Unless you want to see how weird it is, then you could watch it.
Then you can watch it if you want, but I would generally say go read the manga.
Yeah, if you want that, go read the manga. Exactly. But anyways,
I'm Rob.
And I'm John. And that was Domestic Girlfriend.
And it was bad.
And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you could leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
In your ear. Podcast Network.